Next, President Biden about to address the nation, calling for bipartisanship. But will it go anywhere? Democratic Congressman Ilhan Omar, who was just kicked off the House Foreign Affairs Committee by Republicans, responds next. I want to go now to Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. She is joined by her guest for tonight's State of the Union, Andre Locke Sr. His 22-year-old son, Amir, was shot and killed last year while police executed a no-knock warrant in Minneapolis. And Congresswoman Omar is introducing legislation named after Amir Locke to end the use of no-knock warrants. I appreciate both of you being with me very much. And Congresswoman, I'd like to begin with you on the overall framing of this speech such that we understand it. You just heard Phil Mattingly's reporting that President Biden is going to make the case tonight for bipartisanship. Some of his words will include this phrase: there is no reason we can't work together. And that his vision for the country is to unite it. Of course, he's talking to a room with the Speaker McCarthy behind him. Some of the Republicans in that room are the very ones who just kicked you off the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Is he right to work with those Republicans, including Speaker Kevin McCarthy?
So, the president has always been understood as someone who can unite a divided country. That's one of the reasons people voted for him. Instead of voting for Trump, I think it's really important for there to be few people that we identify that we can work with in a bipartisan matter. If you remember, many of the pieces of legislation that we'd moved in a slim majority in the last Congress, a lot of them had bipartisanship support, whether it was the bipartisan gun bill, whether it was the infrastructure legislation. There were a lot of moments where we had that, and I think the president asking for that moving forward, it's going to be really important for anything to get done in the House.
And of course, he is going to be talking about police reform as well, and I want to get to that. But an email just came out that I want to give you a chance to respond to, because your Republican colleagues are fundraising off your removal from the House Foreign Affairs Committee. The Republican Congressman Brian Mast of Florida just sent out an email with the subject line, "We just banned Ilhan Omar." And the email says she is a rabid anti-Semite whose position on the Foreign Affairs Committee was a massive liability for our country's national security. Congresswoman, he's fundraising off of that. He's calling you a rabid anti-Semite. I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that.
Not only is this truly bigoted, act and speech, it is really important for us to remember just how partisan this vote was. Many of my colleagues talked about how this was an attack. I've talked about how their bigoted actions were rooted in the fact that they didn't want a Muslim person, someone who was an immigrant from Africa, and someone who was a refugee being a voice on the Foreign Affairs Committee. This is new McCarthyism. I think it's beneath them to be doing this, especially the Speaker, denigrating his leadership by raising money off of committee assignments. But what can we expect? This is the Republican Party that is now run by conspiracy theorists, QAnon folks, and folks who would rather run a circus than a house.
The president will also address police reform. And Andre, your son was killed by officers executing a no-knock warrant, which was not related to your son. He was in legal possession of a gun. Officers said they considered that a threat. Prosecutors said there wasn't enough evidence to justify charges against any of those officers. Now, of course, you're there tonight with Congresswoman Omar because she is putting forth legislation named after your son, which would end no-knock warrants. When you look at Congress and you look at the division there, do you have hope that this legislation will pass?
I do. I have hope, and I believe that it will pass. And I know that it's times that everything happens in seasons, and it's time for something to happen at this point because no-knock warrants are a high risk to predominantly black and brown people, and we're continuing to lose our lives for something that shouldn't be. So I truly believe that by this bill being passed, the Amir Locke Deadly No-Knock Act, that it will save not only civilian lives, but also save police lives as well.
And Andre, what do you want to hear from the president tonight?
Well, that is first off, it's an honor to be here. Congresswoman, thank you for inviting me as a representation for my family. the Locke family, the Evans family, and also standing in the gaps for Amir's mother, Karen Wells, and the Morgan family. I hope to hear the president stand strong on all reform. And I really don't know how to. I really don't know how to answer that because, I expect a lot of things, but mostly, I'm hoping to see the no-knock bill possibly passed.
I was going to say, Andre and I were talking about this earlier. I think what we want to mostly hear and what we've heard from a lot of the families is they want to hear a speech that's aspirational, that's asking of Congress to act around accountability, reform, one that will guarantee justice,
yes.
And certainly make sure what Amir Locke's family has experienced is never experienced by other families across this country. But we also think that the president still might have tools within his toolbox when it comes to executive orders. So we're hoping to hear what more can he do in regards to that. But most of all, we obviously also want to hear holistically what the vision is for the country, and we want it to be rooted in justice.
Yes.
Thank you both so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.